Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feel It to Heal It podcast. I am so excited because today I am going live with my mentor, Yarrow Kae. We are going to be talking all about my journey to eating meat again and how this was all wrapped up in sneaky trauma. So we are about to go live on Instagram, so you can catch the replay there, or if you're listening on here, I'll also have this on my YouTube. So you have multiple options of where to listen to this. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this live and all the processing we did around my identity as a vegetarian and how I have let that go. So here is the live with me and my mentor, Yarrow Kae.
Client. So freaking important. You could not even believe it. How we got Rachel to eat chicken again. So Rachel's jumping on. We are both going to record the podcast because No, as if you have questions as we dive in. Hi.
Hello.
I'm gonna hit record on the podcast.
I'm recording as well.
Perfect.
Yay. Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course, this is a super important topic that is very sneaky. So just a little bit of context. Rachel, thank you for coming on. Rachel is my long-term client. She's been with me for 3 years in one-to-one. She's also been in groups. She did my second level group expand. She also did my mastermind, which we just had our final call last night.
Yeah.
2 full years we had that mastermind. And 3 of the 5 women who were in it have been together that whole time. So it was a huge change. And Rachel and my relationship, those of you who have been following us, it's been very deep. It's been very connected. It's really transformed who Rachel is as a person on a multitude of levels. We have healed her BPD symptoms, her anxious attachment, her relationship with her food, her body, sex, how she relates to the world as a whole, and being a leader in her life. Like I could literally go on and on and on and on. And these are huge examples, and we will talk more about those in depth at another time. But the reason I wanted her to come on and talk about how we got her to feel safe eating meat again, which I'm just laughing because it seems so small, right? But like, this is the whole point of the Yarrow Kae way and this work, is that the micro creates the macro. And so how you're relating to things, whether it is through the energetic vibration of attachment, of holding on, of addictive behaviors, maladaptive coping mechanism, protectors, defenses, will determine how your life looks and feels. And these things are so unbelievably sneaky. And I have a gift of being able to suss out attachment energy. And I also have a gift to transmute other therapists, coaches, healers, mentors to be able to suss out attachment energy, which Rachel embodies that beautifully. She was the first person I taught the Yarrow Kae way. She can really sense it now. And the evolution of that has just been amazing to see, where at one time she used to argue with me and now she's like, oh wait, yep, I see it, yep, I see it, yep, I see it. And it's like, it's learning a new way of being in the world. And so this specific example of how we got Rachel to eat meat again, which we will give some context on this obviously, is such a beautiful example of the micro things that we attach to, that we don't realize we're attached to, that affect our ability to live a connected, joyful, abundant, healthy, like really vital life, like life filled with vitality, that is.
Yeah.
So Rachel, hello. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I mean, you summed it all up beautifully. I think it's really just highlighting that our trauma and our attachment wounds show up in the sneakiest ways. So something as what may seem as simple or surface level as eating meat actually had so much sneaky trauma wrapped up in it. And I think this just highlights how deep we go in this work. Like the deepest layers, sussing out the most subtle, sneaky energy that to another person would just be, no big deal or not an issue. And you and I have just gotten to a place where we can get to these things so quickly, and it saves so much time and energy. And it's just a much more easeful way of living. So I'm excited to dive into all the things.
Me too. And I just want to highlight what Rachel said. This is really important. Actually, this makes me teary because I always say that I've been gaslit by the world. And 2 days ago, Rachel messaged me. She's like, I'm so sorry you've been gaslit by the world. I see it all now. It must be so frustrating.
Yep.
And because what Rachel said was important, where it's like people will be like, well, it's not a big deal. It's a fucking huge deal.
Mhm.
Like these things are the things that actually keep you stuck in cycles and shame spirals and not feeling safe to feel connected, not feeling safe to trust your process, not feeling safe to actually create your life. Like it actually makes me emotional
Yeah.
because so many people are like, Yara, why are you picking me apart for this thing? I'm like, because this is the fucking thing that is keeping you stuck and you don't even realize it because you're so attached to it that you're so scared to look at it. And I always liken it to like the thing we need to address is the thing that we will act like a rabid beast to protect. We'll
Mhm.
be like, get away from that thing. That's
Yeah.
my thing. I want to keep that thing. I want to stay stuck and sick because in some way you get your needs met. And that's what we're going to dive into by being stuck and sick. And you
Yeah.
don't realize it. Like you literally don't realize that's what's happening. And it is so hard. It like really makes me emotional. It's so hard to watch. And
Yeah.
it's like, I have a solution. I have a solution. It's not gonna fucking be comfortable. You're gonna be really mad at me sometimes, but it is a full solution if you keep leaning in. Like the amount of times my clients get mad at me is like kind of a lot.
Yeah.
I actually have a client mad at me right now, and I love her so much, and I'm like, the way I deal with it now is so different than when I first started. When I first started, I'd get like contracted. I'd be like, I had the good healer complex of like, oh my God, I never want to hurt anybody. But like, that wasn't helping people. Now I'm like, okay, she's mad at me. Let's look at what's actually happening for her here. And I don't take it personally, which has like been part of my growing.
Yeah.
But the reason I share that, and Rachel knows that this is true because we've wrangled many, many, many times.
Many, many times.
She used to tell me I was the most impatient person in the world. And one day it was so fucking validating. She was like, I have to tell you, you are the most patient person I've ever met. How do you live in this world and not want to kill everyone all the time? I was
Yeah.
like, it's a practice.
Yeah, I said this is Yara's era of getting validation from me after all the validation I needed from you because I was like, oh, now I really see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I had a client last week where they were like, why is it always like picking apart the energy and like just like so frustrated? And then literally 2 days later, she experienced this energetic shift that I was guiding her through. And she was like, oh my God, it's actually all about energy. And I was like, yes, that's what I've been telling you. So sometimes it just takes a little while to see it, and that's okay. That's literally what our job is, to help you see it in a clear way.
Totally. And it's okay that it upsets you because
Yeah.
it's not fun to look at all these things about ourselves, especially when they've been normalized by society. Like
Right.
society normalizes sickness and brokenness and obsessing and ruminating and overthinking and disconnection from the body. Like all of those things are normalized. And so because they're normalized, we as humans, because we're attachment based creatures, we're like, oh, it's normal. This is just how the world is. It doesn't have to be. There is a better way. There's a way that creates ease and freedom and connection and bliss and joy. That doesn't mean it's without pain.
Right.
And I always say you can either suffer or you can learn to be with your pain because
Yeah.
those are the two different things. Suffering keeps you stuck in cycles and ruminating. Being with your pain allows you to transmute it and alchemize it into something else. Those are two different things, and it's a lot of what we do. So
Yeah.
we could go on about this work. We should dive into the chicken conversation, the meat
Yes.
conversation.
And I want to start the chicken conversation. I love that we've been calling it the chicken live because it makes me laugh every time. We're like, we have to schedule the chicken live. The thing I want to start is following up on what you said around how when we are relating through trauma and attachment,
Wait,
like,
you broke up for a second. What'd you say?
oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
So when you were saying before, like how when we're relating through trauma and attachment, we become like rabid beasts around the thing that we're holding on to. And that's how I was around talking about my identity as a vegetarian. I would get very resistant. Yara would say like, well, you can't sacrifice your health. Your body is being clear with you all the time. And I would be like, no, like I'm gonna, figure this out. And I would get very, very like activated and emotional around it. And that's how I knew, oh, there's some stuff here to explore. This isn't just like a calm, like, oh no, that doesn't resonate. It was like, back off from this identity that I've, worked to protect my whole life. So that, I mean, apply this to anything in your life. That is how you know when you are coming up against truth and you're getting resistant and fighting it against it, and you are like protecting it like your life depends on it. There are some deeper emotional roots there to explore.
And if you work with either me or Rachel, we become the villain in those situations because
Right.
we are the one poking the beast, and so you're like, you're mean, go away.
Right. And it's like, no, but we gotta keep going to the truth, and you're gonna thank me later. You might be really upset with me at first, but you will thank me later. And that's how it always happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to share that this conversation between Rachel and I was, I don't know, maybe a year. We've been talking about it. She'd been dabbling in it for about a year. She had hired a health coach and she was doing beautiful work with her, but she couldn't get over this meat thing. And even at one point, I was in Hawaii, and coincidentally, Rachel and another one of my clients were also in Hawaii. So they came over, we did like our in-person sessions, and I joined my family for dinner. And Rachel was so dramatic about the chicken.
I was like, Yaru, I'm eating chicken. Look. It was like literally my inner child being like, Mom, look, I'm eating chicken.
And she was like, making a big fuss and taking like these little nibbles. And like, I was just like, okay, whatever. This is her thing. And I didn't touch it. I was like, she's not ready. And then it got to a point where her health was actually suffering. Do you want to tell how it was showing up for you?
Yeah, I just have to add that my favorite part of that whole dinner was I was sitting next to your mom and I started talking to the chicken, like, thank you for your life. And she goes, Yara, she's starting to talk to the chicken. And I was like, oh, I guess this isn't a normal thing there. They don't talk to their chicken. So yeah, it's wait, what was your question? I totally got sidetracked.
It's so funny. I mean, she became pretty infamous in my family of like, is that woman who was so weird about the chicken?
I know. And now I'm working with your stepbrother, and literally it's like the first call, he was like, oh yeah, I didn't get the greatest first impression. You were very dramatic with the chicken. I was like, I know, like we had to do some healing around that.
And so we share all of this because when people can pick up our energetic vibration, and when we are acting out from our trauma, people feel it. And what happens is actually the opposite of what you want. So you're doing it for attention, you're doing it for validation, you're doing it to feel connection. But that energetic vibration is repellent to people.
Yeah.
And so you might get attention, but it's going to be negative attention. But there have been studies done that children actually prefer negative attention to no attention. So getting attention feels like attention, even if it's negative attention, which is part of what we sussed out, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
And so it's so sneaky because Rachel had no idea this was happening. And also I couldn't bring it up at the time because she would have gotten too defensive around it because she wasn't ready. So it's also like being a guide, being a mentor, healing and transforming spiritually in the ways that you do through the Yarrow Kae way and the ways that Rachel works with you. You have to be able to really feel, can my client hear this right now? Because if they're not ready to hear it, it's just going to be damaging. However, them not being ready to hear it, the indicator is not if they get pissed at you or if they get defensive or if they get triggered. That's not the indicator. It's something else. It's like an inner knowing in your body of like, they're not ready. You just feel it. Yeah. And then one day they're ready. And you're like, all right, we can go in. So my question was, how was it showing up for you health-wise that not eating meat was bad for you or damaging you?
Yes. I mean, the number one thing was I've always just struggled with low energy. And as someone who has had to heal a lot of emotion dysregulation, like Yarrow and I would know when I would get to this point of low energy where I was just overtired, like no matter if I was sleeping, sometimes I would sleep like 9-10 hours and I would still just have no energy the next day. And that really wasn't fun for either of us because when I was overtired and didn't have energy and just didn't feel good, my inner child would come out and I would just want to be baby, saved from feeling tired and crappy. So energy was affected. I definitely just struggled more with like just inflammation because when you're not eating meat, I would be eating more carbs, more sugar, more other things. Like, yes, I'm eating vegetables no matter what, but it's still, you have to find something to replace that meat. So I would have inflammation. My skin would be so itchy from that inflammation. I would get bruising. I've struggled chronically with yeast infections, BV infections, just different ways that this congestion would, or this inflammation would show up. And I mean, I have a huge, huge mission on this earth. I can't afford to be like needing to take naps every day. Like, I mean, there's a difference if you actually want to versus like, oh, I am crashing and I don't have energy to actually live my life and live out my purpose. And my body had historically always gone through phases of craving meat where I would give in a little bit, but just a little bit. Like that time in Hawaii, I was craving chicken. I literally had maybe 2 bites of it and then I stopped eating it. So it was like this consistent thing where my body was communicating. I would give in just a little bit and I would go back to being a vegetarian and then I would give in, go back, and it just wasn't sustainable. It was just like looping the same health issues over and over again. And I also have chronically suffered with being overweight. And when you're trying to lose weight, one, it's helping your nervous system get out of survival mode, but it's also, you need more protein, right? So if all I'm eating is carbs, and just even like the protein alternatives like pump foods, very, very high in calories. So it's just this cycle of like trying to lose weight, trying to be healthier, trying to do all these things. And most of all, just have enough energy to be able to enjoy my life and feel as vibrant and alive as possible. Like you said, the vitality. So
Yeah. Then and it just kept getting worse, and Rachel was fighting it. She was fighting her health coach on it. She was fighting me on it, and I wasn't really fighting her, because there are certain things with my clients that I just am like, I gotta let them wrangle with themselves before I insert myself in this.
yeah.
Because sometimes we do literally just need to like be like circling. And then we got to a point. So Rachel had started drinking bone broth, begrudgingly, but she did it.
I'm drinking it right now. Delicious. I drink it every day.
In a lobster cup. I love it. So, so she had started drinking bone broth, and her bruises were going away on her legs, and she was feeling better. And so she was like, fuck. Like, I have to look at this.
The
Like,
gateway drug.
So she came to the mastermind, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And she was like, I want to talk about this. And my whole body was like, I don't want to go here because this is going to be annoying.
Yeah, you're being dramatic. I was like, no, but there's something here.
Right. And she kept saying it. And so we got to somewhere, but then we had a boxer day the next day. And she came back in and she's like, okay, I need to talk about the meat. And I was like, all right, well, what we need to talk about, and help me remember how this went. So my recollection is, I was like, there's some way that I feel like you got attention for this as a child.
Yeah.
And Rachel said, no, if anything, it was just annoying to everyone. And I was like, this is where I was like, but negative attention is better than no attention. And then Rachel was recalling, and what were you recalling from childhood and how this would go?
Yeah, so basically as a kid, I ate meat up until the point where I understood what it was. So as soon as I understood that it was a dead animal, there was immense amount of fear and confusion of like, I'm just laughing at the questions I was asking you. How can the animals be both pets and food? Like it was very, the whole Voxer day, I was asking Yarrow these very little kid questions. And I say that with love because I didn't have anyone to just teach me like, you can love animals and you can eat them and use them for nourishment. You can have them as pets, like the gray nuances of life, because part of our trauma showing up is black and white thinking of like, well, if you're eating animals, you don't love animals. And for me, it was always like people would ask me, oh, are you doing this for animal rights? And when I was younger, it literally was just this reaction of, ooh, it grosses me out. And so even that was a very little girl energy way of relating of my health is suffering, but I'm not going to do something because it grosses me out. And just like with anything with the nervous system, once something is uncomfortable and unknown, and in this case, grossing me out, when you do it enough times with repetition, it then becomes your new norm. So I used to like struggle to get through 1 cup of bone broth because it grossed me out. And now it's just my norm where I don't even think about it anymore. So it was really understanding how when I was a kid and I stopped eating meat, once I realized what it was, I would say things to my parents like, well, I'm not going to eat fish in Cape Cod because we would go to Cape Cod every summer. I'm not going to eat fish because I swim with the fish. You can't eat with the things you swim with, And I can look back and be like, wow, like little me was just, confused and just like had a big heart, and that's beautiful. But I needed to understand all the nuances, which I wasn't able to understand as a kid. So I then started getting attention for it because we would go out, to restaurants, and it would always be this thing of like, well, what is Rachel going to eat here? And they would make it this big deal, like family, friends, like whoever I was dining with. And it made me feel so uncomfortable of like, I'll find something to eat. You don't have to make it this big deal. But to my nervous system, right, that was me consciously not liking it because it would bring up shame and stuff, but unconsciously it was attention.
And it was the special wound.
It was the special wound, yes. So Yarrow and I uncovered that I have a special wound where rather than just believe, like knowing and feeling and embodying that we are all innately special, I, as the youngest, as my trauma showed up, it was like this need to prove that I am special, that I am the different one, that I am the one that, it was labeled as the cancer survivor, the vegetarian, the person that, my mom, the child that my mom would come to as a therapist and like befriend, even though I didn't need a friend, I needed a mom. So the special wound developed and this fed into it of like, even when I remember junior year of college studying abroad and in Spain, very big on meat and fish. And my host mom, like, literally did not know how to cook for vegetarians. So it was like, again, this negative attention of like, how do you not eat meat? How do you not eat fish? This is like our delicatessen thing of Spain, but it helped reinforce that special wound of, oh, Rachel needs to eat something different. And that's how I felt special, which is like so sad to think about because we are innately so unique and special just as we are. But when that trauma and attachment wounding shows up, it's like this little girl trying to prove, I'm special because of these external circumstances. So it reinforced it where then as an adult, I'm still looking for attention. The first time I ever tried salmon, I literally had the entire, this is so cringy to think about, but I had the entire Parakeet Cafe staff, like, it was like this big dramatic thing of like, guys, I've never eaten salmon before. And like, I'm taking videos of it. You might remember my stories. Like, I'm taking videos. The cashier is like, oh, yeah, she's never eaten salmon. Like, they're telling the guys in the back and they're all watching me eat the salmon. Like, it was literally just trying to get attention rather than me being an adult being like, I'm just going to consume this salmon because I need it for my health.
Oh my God,
I know, I did too until I started talking.
and it's so Rachel's inner child. Like if you know
Yeah.
Rachel and you know her inner child, like Rachel is probably the most grounded person I know. She's calm, she's grounded, she's very intuitive, she's very like, connected. When her inner child is activated, she is the least grounded, most dysregulated, most raspy person I've ever met.
Totally. It's like literally could not be polar opposites. And that's how I knew, oh wait, this is not my authentic self. This is literally a 5-year-old being like, look at me, I'm eating a fish that once I was swimming with. Oh my God.
Honor you for a moment. Like we never could have had this conversation and laughed at this and spoke about this so transparently until probably recently. Like you still would have felt invalidated a little bit or a little bit, and now you can just. And I feel the same way about little Yarrow from 38 years old. And I'm like, oh, sweet girl, she just was so scared. And that when you can get to that place and just like, oh, just feel for her.
I know. Like I would feel so much shame and I would be so prickly around talking about this because it would bring up all the validation wounds. And now I can like genuinely just be like, oh, like sweet little Rachel, she just wanted so much attention. She just was confused. She didn't realize you could eat the fishies that she swam with.
So I just want to, so to tease this apart for people, so it started with Rachel's, and I love Rachel's father, and I probably would have loved her mother, but so I say this with a lot of love. It started with Rachel's parents not explaining to her, which listen, we live in the Western world, our parents are busy, they're like, whatever, just eat it, right? So I didn't explain to her effectively what was, actually happening with eating meat and fish and all the things. And so then her little confused brain was like, well, that doesn't feel right. Then she started to get attention for it, and then she sucked off the attention. Yeah. And it became a thing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add because I just had this memory of when we would go to my aunt's house every Tuesday for dinner, and my dad's side of the family, very Irish Catholic, so they eat meat and potato, like they eat all the meat. And I always like they were so confused with how to feed me that my aunt would just make this cheese ravioli every time I would come over. And I was like, but I want some vegetables. Like they didn't understand how to like feed me vegetable or whatever it was. So even that in and of itself, it was like, yes, it was like the negative attention. It was almost like this survival thing of like me feeling like neglected, like, hello, what about me? And again, my inner child trying to get those needs met and that attention. And even them just seeing like, oh, you only ate, the bread roll tonight. Like, again, it was me being like, yeah. So it was, again, just reinforcing that attention over and over, even when it didn't feel good. And that's what you guys have to remember is like, This wasn't like enjoyable attention. This was, oh, I feel neglected, and it's all unconscious to everyone. Like they're not trying to do that.
Right. And they also, it was a way that they heard you. So, like all
Mhm.
the other emotional needs that weren't met, Rachel wasn't heard in. And so
Right.
this was one area where she was heard. And
Yeah.
because she was heard, it became a thing that she like rigidly attached to and was like, because her body was like, I'll be heard if
Mhm.
I complain about this, if
Yeah.
I talk about this. Whereas other things, she was ignored and neglected. And so it became hyperfixation on this is the thing that they're going to hear me about.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about how sneaky these things are, if you think about just any tangible thing that we do as kids to get those needs met, like food is a much more concrete thing of like, I want a vegetable or I need something else other than ravioli versus, oh, I'm not feeling seen, I'm not feeling understood, I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling held, right? Those are, as a child, you can't express that. So you find other ways of getting those needs met because through that I'm feeling seen in I am not happy with this meal, right? So you always have to look underneath that surface thing. There's always the deeper emotional needs that all of us needed during childhood that most of us, if not all of us, did not get.
And we come up with crafty ways to try to get them met. And
Yeah.
this was a crafty way that Rachel was trying to get her emotional needs met. And most, if not all, therapists, healers, mentors would dismiss this
Oh,
as
yeah.
nothing or just
Yeah.
rigidly push back on you about it rather than like, what's actually going on here?
Right.
Because you could feel the energy, like weird energy. You could feel it. And like I
Mhm.
said, I didn't touch it for a while because I was like, yeah, she's got to wrangle with herself about this until she's
Yeah.
ready.
Well, and also I had hired my naturopath, and during our 6 months of one-on-one, I mean, she was explaining to me like the actual research and studies of why animal protein can be adapted so much easier by the human body than plant protein. I was learning and learning and learning, and I was like, oh, I can't really deny this research and deny how I'm feeling. And she would reflect that back to me. And she would say things like, Rachel, you don't have to be this perfect person to save the animals. And I would get so triggered. I'd be like, why does she think I'm doing it to be perfect? I'm not doing it to be perfect. I just find it gross. But when you again peel back the layers of, and you even said this on our Voxer Day, you were like, you saying it's gross is a defense against actually looking at what's happening for you underneath that. Because the gross thing we can move through. And I have, like, I still have moments where I'm like, oh, this is a little, and then I get over it and then I enjoy my meal and I'm so happy, right? So that's, me fixating on like, no, she's not understanding me. It's this thing is actually a defense against what she was mirroring to me, which was that it was very, and this was one of the first things you said in Voxer too, is very wrapped up in ego of I can be the one, the special wound, I can be the one to be healthy as a vegetarian. I don't care what the other research says. I know that, what did I said something like, oh God, this is funny. I said to you multiple times, I was like, God wouldn't put me in a position where I had to choose between my desire and my health. And and then we uncovered it and it was like, but my desire is to be the most healthy I can be. That's not actually a desire. That was trauma. So this is another example of how we always get mixed up of like intuition versus trauma, and the fact that I was so rigid. Desire is like calm. It's like, oh, I desire to eat vegetarian. That's like a calm thing rather than like, well, God wouldn't make me choose and what's happening and getting so worked up about it. And it's like, oh no, God's actually giving me what I need me to get to what I want, which is to be really healthy and feel like my most authentic, powerful self. So it's all connected.
It is. And Rich brought up an interesting point about desire, which I want to touch on because we talk a lot about desire. And in the spiritual community, desire has a really bad reputation. The
Mhm.
reality is, we all have desires. And in Gene Keys, I'm actually 8 is my life path, which is the gene key of desire. And so I'm meant to guide people to feel safe to be with their desires. And so when we're looking at desire, we have to look at what is the energetic vibration behind it. Is it of addiction and attachment? Because that is desire that's going to cause suffering? Or is it something that lights up your heart and makes you feel expansive and makes your cells light up? And for Rachel, the thing with not eating meat was very like rigid and attached and like, this is my desire. It wasn't an authentic, pure, connected desire, whereas her desire is to be the healthiest she can be, as she said. Mm-hmm. And so I always say, the universe is going to give you what, in order to get what you desire, you're going to have to do what you need, right? Yeah. And we fight that. Like, we push back on that so hard. We don't, it's not like we put out a desire to the universe and the universe drops it into our lap. Sometimes that happens, but it's usually after we've done a ton of internal work to be the person to hold that desire or to connect to that thing or to do the healing we need to do or to unlearn all of the things that we think we should, air quotes, be, versus who we actually are and what is actually in alignment and connection and in the purity of our essence and our soul and our own unique energetic vibration. And getting to that place is going to ask you to get so honest about things you don't think are a big deal that are actually the biggest deal in the world and are creating so much stuckness, brokenness, like ickiness, like contraction, shutdown, defensiveness in your life. Like I could go on and on. Like, these are the things that cause you to subtly contract and not be able to have intimacy with your partner, to take care of yourself, to get honest with yourself, to look at yourself in the mirror, to make eye contact with people, to hold your clients effectively the way you want to be a leader in your life. If you're like an executive, to be a leader with your employees. If you're an employee, to be able to step into leadership and expand into the position you want to have. Like, these are the things. Yeah. It's not the like big energetic thing. Sometimes it is, but most often it's these micro things that you think are inconsequential that are actually disrupting every area of your life.
Yeah, 100%. And it's realizing that we attach to like, we are taught, oh, attachment is just with humans. Like, my attachment to this identity, or like, God wouldn't make me choose. I also remember saying that about when I was leaving my partner in New York, and you're like, well, God would want my partner to be in San Diego because San Diego is where I love. And sure enough, my partner's not in San Diego. We think he might be in Newport. So it's just another example of like, we attach on to like this and this, and this is going to go, and it's going to go like this. And it's like, we have no fucking clue how it's going to go. It gets to go even beyond what we imagine it could go or should go. And that's the whole point. Like, that is the entire point, is when you feel safe to release those attachments, you get to go on the path that is beyond what you could even think that you want. I mean, you know, with the meat, with the partner, with all of it, it's like my life in this present moment is a million times more desirable than all of the things I was attaching onto in terms of vegetarian and San Diego and this and everything's going to work out this way. And it's like, no, just it can work out so much better if you just release those attachments and actually get to, where is my ego wrapped up in this? How have I gotten needs met through this? Where is my inner child feeling scared to let this go? And now it's been really light and fun because I've been able to like share, you know, meat meals with my family. And it's not this thing of like, look at me eating meat. It's more just like the reactions on people's face of like, wow, we never thought this would happen. But it's just this like connected, enjoyable thing. Like, I post about meat on my stories all the time now, and it's not from this energy of like, I need attention. It's like this celebration of releasing the need for that attention and actually getting attention for the things that you want attention for, right? Like, I want attention for how healthy I'm feeling right now. That's what we want to reinforce. It's okay to need attention. We just don't want to reinforce the things that we don't actually want attention for.
Yeah, I always actually tell my clients, because there's a lot of shame that goes along with needing attention. We all fucking want attention. We want to be the stars of our little worlds, and we want attention. Yeah. But when we're trying to get it through these gross, crafty, weird ways, it's repellent and it's gross. Whereas if you're just like, here, I'm shining and this is who I am, and you can be shining too, and this is who you are, like, that's such a fucking beautiful way to live.
Oh my God, so much.
Instead, it's like, oh, well, we have to contract here, and maybe you're better than me, or maybe I need this, or maybe I need to hold on to this thing so that people think I'm special. Instead, it's just like, we can all be uniquely, beautifully, special, magical for who we are and celebrate each other. Like, now, when I used to see Rachel put in her stories, like, I remember the parakeet salmon thing. My God, that is just so cringy.
How could we forget? I know.
Like, oh, like, just eye roll, right? watching your stories. And the other day, when you got home from New York, you posted your burger, and I could just, it made me so happy to watch you eat that burger because I could feel
I
the
know.
good, and that's the thing is it's like when you have someone who can reflect back to you, this feels icky and this feels pure,
Yeah.
it sets you free.
Yeah.
And it's not to pick you apart, it's not to shame you, it's to really look at how have you got your needs met? How are you not honest about how you've got your needs met? How able are you to be with your emotions? How able are you to communicate what's actually happening for you? What are you attaching onto?
Mhm.
And like the whole spiritual transformation purpose is to become non attached. Now, let me explain non attachment to you. Non attachment does not mean aloof. It doesn't mean you don't have feelings. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you become a robot. It means being able to be with all things and move through them without holding on.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite stories, I think it's a Buddhist story, I might fuck it up. There are two monks and they're walking through the forest and they're not supposed to touch women. And they come to this river, and there's a woman who can't cross. And the older monk takes off his coat, puts it down. She crosses. He carries her. I'm sorry, no, he carries her across the river. And then he puts her down, and they keep walking. And the young monk, like I don't know, 20 miles later, is like, "I can't believe you touched that woman." And the older monk says, "I may have touched her, but you're the one who's still carrying her." Mm-hmm. It's the ability to be with everything that is and not hold on to it. Yeah. It's not rigidity. It's not perfectionism. It's not, I can't have feelings because I'm emotional. In fact, John Wellwood, who coined the term spiritual bypassing, he was a Buddhist and psychotherapist, and he said in his Buddhist community, all these people were avoiding romantic relationships under the guise of non-attachment, but what they were really attached to is non-attachment. They were attached to non-attachment because when they get into the romantic relationships, what happens for us all? We become fucking nightmares a lot of the time until we process most of our trauma. And even still, we're gonna get triggered by that. Intimate romantic relationship is the thing designed to trigger us the most because it mirrors all the shit that we are not looking at. Yeah. Non-attachment is being able to be with that, learn, grow, evolve, excavate, shift, expand, and come back to connection and presence in this moment. Yeah. And we hold on to so many things and we don't understand the concept of non-attachment, or we overly attach to attachment or being human as an excuse to actually be with the things we need to be with, to process them through so that we can come back to connection, to neutrality, to presence, to groundedness. Like I said about Rachel, she's the most grounded person I know. She's way more grounded than I am. I'm like flighty fairy up in the sky. She's like an anchor. She's like fully anchored in her being. When her inner child is activated, she is not any of those things.
It's like I'm a tree, and then when my inner child gets activated, I have left the forest, and I'm literally, I cannot be found. I'm lost puppy in the woods, and then I come back to my home base of tree, and I'm like, oh, this is how I actually am supposed to. And like you can feel the difference of everything you're describing of attachment versus authenticity, right? The grounded tree is my authentic self. It's like you can feel the difference in your body energetically. Like before, when I would have those moments of eating meat, it was very much an attachment of, oh, my family's doing this or the people around me are doing this. So I want to, just not get negative attention. I want to get the positive attention for it. That's the attachment. And it wasn't actually me doing it for me, like for the right reasons. Now, when I do it, it's from this place of grounded authenticity and it feels completely different in my body. So you can apply this to anything. You will always feel the difference of attachment, graspy, needy inner child energy versus like, oh, this just like lands, like this just is without all of this like.
And it is the greatest gift to witness you embody this more and more and more all the time. Yeah. Like the numbers of fights we've had, the ways that Rachel has been dysregulated, not by me, but by the world, and how she's had to come back to herself. And like being able to teach you this way of relating to the world is such a gift. And it's something I want for everyone because my God, does it not feel like the best thing in the world? Like no money, no amount of money, no partner, no travel, no anything can give you what this feels like this, to be able to be with all things without obsessing, ruminating, grasping, like freaking out, like just be like, okay, I can be with everything. I can be with pain, I can be with joy, I can be with fear. I can trust the process. When I'm in the deep dark unknown, I can keep going and know it's going to be okay. Nothing can give you that.
Nothing. Literally nothing. And the way that you know that you're there is because before I would always be focusing on the external thing, the money, the partner, the whatever was happening outside of myself. And now it's like I literally don't even think about those things sometimes. And if I do, it's just more of like this feeling of an extension of how I'm feeling internally. And that's how it shows up. Like yesterday, I had a very abundant day. I wasn't even thinking about, let me sit here and manifest money. It was like literally just feeling so connected to myself, so joyful, so calm. Like I feel the most grounded I've ever felt in my life in this present moment. And the way that I used to operate was like, okay, let me sit here and try and manifest the money and the partner and the clients and all the things. And I'm just going to do my manifestation homework. And what manifestation homework doesn't teach you is that none of that shit can take the place of actually connecting to all parts of you to learn how to feel your feelings and stop running away from yourself. I no longer do any of that manifestation shit because your energy, like building internal safety, is the greatest manifestation tool that you could ever have. Like nothing takes the place of feeling safe to be with yourself, to be with your feelings, to be with the unknown of life, and to be so connected to who you authentically are. Like you authentically are not this dysregulated person. Like you authentically are someone who knows how to be with your emotions, who knows how to feel your emotions. Like I could go on and on, but there's no greater feeling. Like you could give me $1 million right now and I would choose this any day, like any day. And because I'm choosing this, that $1 million will come as a natural byproduct of feeling this way, not as I have to choose between this or the thing, right? Because talk about desire, and we were talking about this in our group last night. You think you desire things, and then you realize that those desires were actually rooted in attachment and trauma in your inner child trying to feel safe and get needs met. So when you have this level of internal safety and self-connection, it's like literally none of the shit even matters. So that when it happens, you're just like, oh, this feels bonus, this feels nice, but it's like, I don't need it. And that is literally the most freeing feeling in the world. Like there are no words for how freeing that feels. It's quite literally everything. It's like the most important thing in the world.
I totally agree. It is like a full embodiment of trust and connection and safety, and like the deepest love for yourself and your being and your journey on this earth, and literally nothing can compare. And I'm going to give one other example about Rachel that just makes my, like, she messaged me this, it's just so funny. So Rachel, when we first started working together, it's like, I want kids so badly, I can't wait to be a mom. And I would go, yeah, we'll see, okay. So she over time is like, I don't know, maybe I don't, oh, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't. And then she messaged me when she was in New York, and she was like, I didn't ever want kids. I didn't love kids. I just loved running away from myself.
And then the other message I sent you was just like, I was at dinner, I was eating a hamburger and chicken wings and realized I don't want kids. And you're like, who are you eating hamburgers and chicken wings and realizing you don't want kids?
And so many people make that mean something about themselves. Like it gets really scary. Like, oh my God, I don't know myself. And initially it can feel scary.
Yeah.
But then it gets exciting because you're like, oh, who am I actually? And like it never changes. Like this year, I mean, I am a certain person. I for 20 years lived in cities. I grew up in the redwood trees, off the grid, in the forest, and I was dying at 12 years old. I was like, just get me to a city. I moved to San Francisco at 19. I lived in San Francisco, LA, Chicago, New York City. In 2020, I came back to the woods because I really wanted to be here. And like this year, I started gardening. I bought cowboy boots. I'm listening to country. I'm like curating my home and my space. Like it's exciting. I'm like, oh, this is the new iteration of me in this moment. And like, it doesn't need to mean anything about me that I don't want to live in a city anymore. I can let go of that attachment and allow myself to land in who I actually am and the natural evolution of me without needing to prove something because of ego. Like And when I remember there were a couple moments where, someone would say, "Oh, Yarrow lives in McKinleyville," and I'd be like, "Well, I've lived in City." Like, I get a little defensive because
Yeah.
I had this ego attachment to being worldly and cultured and like having lived these other places, and like now I can laugh at myself because that was my ego, right? It was like my ego, I readjusting to like, oh, I've landed to living in a small town and want to be in nature more than anything. It's the most, at this point in time, nature is the most luxurious thing to me. I don't care, you could give me the nicest spot in the world and I still would choose to have my feet in the dirt
Yeah.
and on the sand. Like, that is
Totally.
just the ultimate luxury to me at this moment in time. And like allowing that evolution
Yeah.
of myself, it takes me being able to soften my ego, release the grip, trust the process, know that it's all leading me exactly where I'm meant to go. And I cannot tell you, and I know Rachel feels the same way, and I know that all of my clients who've leaned in this fully feel the same way, and all of Rachel's clients who've leaned in this fully feel the same way. There is literally nothing more freeing than
Yeah.
this, nothing more valuable. It is the greatest return on investment in the world, and it literally will bring all of the things that you actually desire, not the things you think you desire, the things you actually desire that are from a pure energetic vibration and connected to truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when you're talking about just allowing the natural evolution, it's like when you move through that initial fear of like, who the fuck am I? Like, I don't like all these things that I thought were me and they actually aren't. Well, then who am I? And that can absolutely feel scary. And Lord knows I went through that deep fear period this year. But on the other side of that, when you're able to get to this excitement, you realize that like your authentic self will always have these core anchors that you can come home to, right? Like no matter where I live, I will always be a grounded, me, right? Like I'm still me, the essence of my soul is still me, but it's kind of like the nervous, what we talk about nervous system structure with the flow. It's like our authenticity has those core anchors to come home to, but then allowing that flow of like, oh, I'm going to live here, but maybe I want to experience this, or maybe I like this, but it's just allowing yourself to grow and evolve and knowing that that doesn't have to be this like scary thing, because really when we're attaching on to, well, this is me, this is who I am, and that attachment, it's just the need to know. It's our brains trying to know, well, if I know that I'm a vegetarian, then I know who I am, rather than
That's safe, right?
and
And
then
then
I'm
I'm safe.
safe.
That need to know all comes back to, if I know this, if this is who I am, I'm safe.
Right. Exactly. Rather than I am safe regardless. And when you have that internal safety, then you can actually just explore and play. Like it's so fun. It almost feels like a return to childhood, but not the traumatizing version of childhood, like this rebirth. Like I literally feel like I've been rebirthed into the world, but I'm not a child, I'm an adult, so I can enjoy the freedom of that, right? Because the nature of being a child is you're in survival mode. So yes, there are parts of it that are present and connected and enjoyable, but it's also really traumatizing to have your survival be dependent on something else. So now it's like this rebirth of getting to know who you are as an adult, knowing that you're safe to do that and you have the freedom to do that. Like it gets to be fun. Like you're gardening. Like what? Like I've known Yara for 3 years, but I never what like that, like witnessing you step into this version like has been just the most beautiful thing to witness. And like we're only just getting started. Like we just get to keep playing and exploring and like, oh, it's just everything. So when the rest of the world is preaching about like, you need to get married and have kids and do this and that, like all of that external shit is just noise disconnecting you from actually just being in your own body. Like I told Yarrow in the group last night, I think the majority of my life, I was not even in my body. I was living through such intense fear and dysregulation, and like to have even imagined that I could feel this landed in my body. Like I didn't even know what that could feel like. I literally have never experienced feeling this way. And I'm, almost 33. It's like, and some people go their whole lives, right? Like I always think about my mom, like she never got to feel this. And so many people, most people don't. And it's like, no matter what age you are, no matter how much healing you've done, like nothing. And I've done all of it. Yara's done all of it. We've done all the things. I was trained in all of the things. None of them are this. This is just beyond, like everything. It's just everything. I could go on and on.
It's really truly is spiritual transformation. It's getting you to come first. It's it through the access of healing your nervous system and processing your trauma. It's a lot. It's heavy on the healing the nervous system and processing the trauma initially, and then once you feel safe in your body, it's teasing apart all of these other things.
Yeah.
And it literally sets you free. Like I've been on a spiritual journey since I was 19, and I have like gone through trial and error. I always laugh and I say my trial and error and my suffering is your gold, because I have been through all the things. And when I say that, it doesn't mean I've experienced all things in life. It means I have gone to the depths of the darkest parts of my soul,
Yeah.
into the expansive and brightness of my spirit, and landed back grounded in my unique energetic vibration on this earth, and able to create from that space and allow for non-attachment, allow for letting go, allow for evolution, allow for expansion, and to feel safe to do that. And so when you do this work, you're set free. I'm not trying to make you into me or into Rachel or into, it's literally who are you? And Rachel has been in group containers with me for over 2 years now, and she can attest, like literally everyone is different, and I guide everyone back to themselves.
Yeah.
And they're all meant to do what they're meant to do and who they're meant to be, and to feel who they are, like feel the essence of them. We're all meant to be different, and it's such a fucking gift when we can all just be who we are. Oh, it makes me emotional.
I know.
Like just appreciate each other for our own unique beingness.
Yeah. And I just started laughing because I would just like have these memories, these flashbacks of when you would tell one of the group members something, I'd be like, how come you told me I couldn't date men for 6 months? But this person's dating men, right? It's like we go into things thinking that everyone's journey is going to be the same, but we all have different reparative experiences that we need. So for me, with that example, I really needed to learn how to be with myself, because dating and men and my anxious attachment would always disconnect me from my authentic self. So I needed a period. And Yarrow knew that. She was like, you need to learn how to be alone and be with yourself. Whereas some of the other members in the group, they actually needed more, relationship experience, more relational healing, that they needed to live. They hadn't, lived in that way. Whereas for me, I had been in a plethora of relationships and sexual experiences and all the things. So it's really honoring your journey and like not comparing that to anyone else's, because our souls literally come here to learn different lessons. And when we start comparing of like, well, how come you're learning this lesson, but I have to do it this way? It's like it's just a distraction from what are you here to learn? And like, what does your individual unique soul need on this earth in this lifetime, and honoring that and not making your journey or someone else's process wrong or right. It's just different. It's unique. And that's the beauty of it. Like you said, that's literally the whole point. Life would be so much more boring if we were all just like doing the same shit every day, all day.
Totally. And it's about being able to meet each lesson in each moment at each time with full acceptance and surrender and trust and courage to be able to take the actions we need to take and do the things we need to do to not only heal and shift, but also to show up in the world.
Yeah.
Because we all need people who are here to show up, not check out through scrolling on their phone and binging TV and, binge watching sports and caring more about celebrities and sports and even politics, sweet ones, than you do about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, we need people who care so deeply about themselves that they're able to show up and be guiding light for the rest of the world, because that is how we would create change. We don't create change by creating division and reactivity and projecting onto each other and obsessing and ruminating over something external. We create actual, real, sustainable change by each individual having the courage to go deeply inside, transform and heal all the trauma, rewire your nervous system to connection, abundance, joy, expansion, and freedom, so that we can help others feel safe to do the same. That is how we actually create change.
Yeah.
And Rachel and I are here. We're leading the way. And thank you all for joining and listening to this beautiful story. Rachel, I'm so proud of you every single day. Like, it is such a gift to witness how you have just connected, and like you can just see it. It makes me giggle because there are so many things that used to just be like a big deal to you that you're just like, oh my God. And you're like, you can like just love that young part of you who was just reacting through trauma. And it's okay. We don't have to shame that part. And when Rachel can do that, I can have compassion for that part.
Mhm.
Whereas when Rachel's like grasping at me for validation for that part, I'm like repelled. I'm like, no, that's not helping you. We
Right.
can't hold on to that. We can love her, but we can't hold on to that.
Yep, totally. Yeah, no, 1,000%. It's just that's not actually helpful. This is helpful, like getting through to the other side and actually just looking at what's actually happening and being honest with yourself about that, which is one of the hardest things that you will learn how to do. But when you do it, you realize, oh, this doesn't actually have to mean anything about me. We are all human. We all have emotions and shame and shit that we need to be with. And the sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can move through it and the sooner you can actually connect to your authentic self, which is the greatest gift because the world needs more of you, not more of the same person trying to be you. So,
Or more of someone relating through addictive behaviors and defenses and
right,
protectors, right? It's like
right.
not only is it what's not you, but it's also like the energetic vibration of relating through addiction, through trauma. Like we all have trauma and addictive behaviors. We live in a traumatized, I look up there because I'm just like thinking about the world. Like
Mhm,
we live in a traumatized and addicted world, like everyone, not across
mhm.
the board. I don't care how beautiful your life looked or how happy you think your family was. We are not wired for connection and abundance and expansion and heart center. We are wired for disconnection, scarcity, fear, survival, contraction. And we're so terrified
Yeah.
collectively. And when you do this work, you come back to trust and
Mhm.
faith and connection
Yeah.
and love, and you can read any spiritual text, any religious text in the world, and those are the things this is all about. And the path to that is creating that internal freedom within your own being and being who you are meant to be.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll say is I mean, I love so many things about this work, but what I love most is that it gets to be so simple. Like we are so addicted to intellectualizing and overanalyzing and trying to find the right thing and the next hot tip and trick. And like it becomes so up here that we get disconnected from what it means to just be human, which is honestly just learning how to feel your feelings and to be with your body and be with yourself and be in this present moment that trauma disconnects us from. So it's not about spending so much time and energy. Like I think back to all of oh my God, just the amount of energy I would spend thinking, overthinking, trying to figure shit out just to avoid fear. And as soon as you accept the fact that we're going to have moments in life where the fear feels so fucking strong that you feel like you're dying, and you feel it anyway, you get out of your head and then that you don't feel as afraid of the fear anymore. So this healing work is really simple. It's literally learning to stop running away from your feelings, learn that you are safe to be with those feelings, and then you can have that as your foundation to expand off of and literally just connect to yourself, to others. Like we are meant, like Yara said, we're not naturally wired for like we're naturally wired for survival, but we're not naturally meant to be just like in survival mode all the time. Like we have to do the work to come back to what we're all here for, which is connection, expansion, experiences, joy, presence. Like none of the other shit matters. And when you really feel that land in your body, you're like, wow, I wasted so much time and energy thinking about shit, running away from myself. And it's like that is far worse than what it actually feels like to just feel the deepest layers of fear and come into in connection with like the darkest depths of your soul. And that's really what spiritual awakening is. Like when I was going through my dark night of the soul this year, Yarrow said, you are meeting your soul on a whole other level. And I'm like, but I was always like the happy, high on life girl. Like I don't experience darkness. And then, oh, sure enough, there was a lot of darkness waiting for me to connect with, and I did, and it was dark. But that's the whole point, is like you're safe to be with that darkness. And that's why attunement, co-regulation, like having that mirror to be with you and be like Yarrow saying to me, I have been through this. I have met the depths of my soul. I have, gone through dark nights of the soul. I have, gone through these spiritual awakenings, and this is what's for you on the other side. Then we can understand like, oh, okay, there's a purpose for this. I'm not just, dying, which is what it feels like.
not in a way of like, because a lot of people will go through that and they'll stay there. They'll get stuck to
Mhm.
the dark. They'll get attached to the darkness,
Yeah.
attached to the
They
pain.
never come
And to
out.
be able to have a mentor who can hold you where you are and keep guiding you forward,
Mhm.
not just like, or not even dismissively, like, oh, yeah, I've been there, but like hold you, like, I'm here with you. I
Yeah.
am in it with you. I got you. You're going to be okay. Like, I promise. Because there's a lot of people who be like, oh, yeah, I've been there. I've experienced that. It's not the same as having an attuned nervous system who can literally be with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And you can feel the energetic difference. Like, you can tell if someone's like flippantly, like, oh, yeah, I've been there, to I've got you. I'm here with you. You're okay. We're going to go through. It's going to be painful. We're going to
Yeah.
birth you out the other side, and it's going to be beautiful. But
Yeah.
I'm here with you in the depths of the pain right now.
Yeah, it's like having a doula as you're rebirthing yourself. Like they are there with you. Like Yara was my spiritual doula, being like, we are pushing out this new you, and it feels fucking terrifying and scary, but like I got you, and this is what this actually is, rather than me being like, what's happening? I've never experienced this, right? It feels scary when we experience something new, and you being like, oh, this is called spiritual awakening. There's like, this is what is actually happening. And the way that I describe this work is like if spirituality and psychology had a baby, it's like when you're in the spiritual world and they're talking about spiritual awakenings, but you're not having the attunement, you're not having the trauma processing, and you're wondering, well, why am I not feeling safe to actually like become non-attached and become in your authentic self?
Actually create psychosis because you
Totally.
need to be like, most people, we're humans. We need to be held through that shit. But
Yeah.
people once upon a time didn't go through that stuff on the alone.
Oh my God.
They had a guide. They had
No.
something. They had someone guiding them through.
Right. And that's why when people do ayahuasca and they're just in a corner by themselves, I'm like, that shit's fucking traumatizing. Like, we have to be held through this. But then, my background was in the therapy world where there was no spirituality included in that. And it gets you stuck in your head, and it's not actual connection of mind, body, soul, right? It's like we try and compartmentalize of like, go to a spiritual teacher here and a therapist here for your mental health. Like, we are one whole human being. And so this method integrates all of that, your soul, your spirit, your heart, your mind, your body, all in one. So we need to be held through the very human trauma, because we are human, in order to connect to our spiritual selves, our soul, our purpose. And that's literally what Yarrow and I just birthed out of me, was like, trauma. And now I've actually landed in, oh, I can feel my soul. And that was actually part of eating meat again, was when I was asking all of the little kid questions, and Yara was like, this is why I don't have children. And I was like, just bear with me. We got a few more questions. We're going to get through them. I know this is fucking annoying for both of us, but I just need to ask the little kid questions. And at the end, she was like, Rachel, if this is your 43rd lifetime, as Hannah has told us, like, connect out of this lifetime, connect out of your childhood, because I was so attached to childhood. Like, what does your soul think about that? Like, how does your soul feel about this? And I was like, I literally, it took 2 seconds to be like, oh yeah, like back in the day, I was munching on animals all the time. And that's what I've reconnected to. Like, doing so in a intentional, ethical, conscious way, I feel so deeply connected to my soul through actually consuming these animals. And it's no longer this like gross, scary thing. There was so much fear, as if like the animal was going to start walking my plate. I don't even know what the fear was. I think it was just a fear around death. Really. I think it was like fear of darkness, fear of death being a part of life, and that this thing died and sacrificed for me. It was all that, like, just fear, right? And so when you can move through that, you then connect to, oh, I feel more connected to not just this lifetime, but my whole soul. I feel connected to, life and God. Like, it just, eating meat again has literally been a spiritual awakening. It's like,
Yeah.
mind blowing. It's really incredible.
I love this. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to wrap up, but Rachel, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited we're going to do more of these, Rachel and I, because we have a lot to say about a lot of things.
Yeah, we have a list going, so stay tuned.
Rachel, for working with you right now, where can we find you?
Yeah, so Instagram is my main home, so come say hello. My DMs are always open. I also have my Feel It to Heal It podcast, which this will be on. You can find me on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. And currently enrolling for Authenticity Unleash, which literally this meat journey has been such a inspiration for, of really helping you connect to your authentic self. So if you are ready to embark on that, message me and we will get you going.
Rachel's also open for maybe one-to-one right now. If you
Yeah.
are really wanting to go deep into it and be held fully, you can reach out to her for one-to-one.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is the greatest return on investment in the entire world. And Rachel is the first person I trained in this method, and just witnessing her expand into it has been such a gift for me.
Yeah.
And just really beautiful. And our relationship has evolved in such a beautiful way in all the ways.
Yeah, we no
And
longer
if you
wrangle.
would like
It's
to work
great.
with me, what did you say?
I said we no longer wrangle. It's great.
I know. It's fucking the best thing ever. It's like
So-
just such a gift. And
Yeah.
I'm often like in awe, like, oh, this, like, I get scared sometimes. I'm like, oh, this might piss her off or this might like trigger something. But
Yeah.
every time it's just like, oh yeah, totally. And I'm like, oh wow, she's totally integrated and landed and embodied, and it's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to work with me, I have DNA Rewired, which is my 90-day group healing program. It is the Yarrow Kae way. It is the intro to that. It is like really getting you into this process of rewiring your nervous system, processing that sneaky, subtle trauma that is wired into your nervous system, coded into your nervous system, bringing you back to safety in your body, connecting you to who you actually are in this moment, your clarity, your vision, and feeling safe to be seen, receive, expand, and just be. Like literally greatest gift in the world. So you can join that. That starts on October 24th. And also, I have the portal, which is a 12-month mentorship program. You can join for 12 months. You can join for 1 month. We have themes every single month. I become the nervous system you attune to. I will be in Telegram Monday through Friday, so you get daily, 5 days a week doses of Yarrow to rewire your nervous system around the subject for the month. October is coming home to and loving you, the perfect theme for Libra season. Coming home to is going to be like really looking at, what does it mean to come home to yourself? What does it mean to actually love yourself? How do you connect to your being, to your body, to your breath? So that is October. The portal is such a freaking, I'm just so excited. It's the education we never received that we needed around the subjects like coming home to yourself, beauty, love, intuition, money, power, abundance, connection, vision, like all the things we needed to be taught to come home to ourselves and become that clear channel like Rachel and I have been speaking about. So those are the 2 ways to work with me right now. We will have this on both of our podcasts. I have the Heal and Expand podcast if you want to look for that. Rachel has Feel It to Heal It podcast. This will be on both Rachel and my page. Oop, there's Fly. And also on both of our podcasts. So thank you for joining, Rachel, so much.
Thank you for having me. This was amazing. I enjoyed every minute. And thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes, I did too. And thank you all. Let either of us know if you have questions. You can reach out to either of us in our DMs. Send us a carrier pigeon, send us an email, whatever works for you. And we love you all so much. And we'll see you soon.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for tuning into that live with me and my mentor, Yarrow. I hope you guys got so much out of it. And please let me know if you need support. My DMs are always open, or you can email me. And I will see you for the next episode. Mwah.